Hello everyone, my name is Daniela and I'm a volunteer with For a Safer Space. Today's presentation will focus on burnout. I would like to begin this presentation with a land acknowledgement. I am conducting this presentation on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island. While it is important to acknowledge which land I'm on, it is equally as important to understand why we engage in a land acknowledgement. First, acknowledging the land is an act of decolonization. Decolonization is an act that aims to reverse colonialism. It is also significant in understanding history and acknowledging history, as well as showing respect for indigenous peoples and their relationship to the land. However, it is important to not only use the land acknowledgement, but to educate ourselves on historical and current issues, stand with indigenous peoples in the pursuit of social justice, and decolonize our thoughts and actions. Today's agenda will include a brief introduction into the topic, followed by what is burnout, work-related versus non-work-related burnout, types of burnout, stress versus burnout, burnout and mental health, causes of burnout, risk factors of burnout, warning signs of burnout, statistics, burnout and the pandemic, misconceptions about burnout, preventing and coping with burnout, supporting someone experiencing burnout, helping clients cope with burnout, and to conclude, resources and key takeaways will be discussed. Many people will experience burnout pertaining to their career at one point in their life. Job burnout could be for various reasons, such as a lack of satisfaction with what they do, but not feeling like they have a choice, or they may feel like their days are consistently bad, hopeless, or useless. While not as commonly discussed, burnout can also derive from other areas of life or other roles someone may take on that requires them to expend energy. Additionally, there can be different types of burnout which can influence behaviors and have different root causes that result in the burnout. However, due to the consequences of burnout, it is important that individuals learn to prevent and cope with experiences of burnout. What is burnout? As mentioned, many people will experience career burnout, which can lead to a decrease in motivation at work. However, at its core, burnout can be defined as a circumstance of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion that results from excessive and prolonged stress. Burnout can result in a decrease in the ability to function and be productive in a work setting, although it can also negatively impact other areas of life, which will be discussed on a later slide. This can result in reduced productivity and motivation overall, leading to feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, and resentfulness. The main difference between stress and burnout is that stress is often hyperactive and overreactive, while burnout results in more disengagement and detachment. Work-related versus non-work-related burnout. While burnout is heavily discussed within the context of work and job stress, there are other causes of burnout unrelated to one's career. These causes often go undiscussed, which can make it difficult for individuals living with non-work-related burnout to define what they are feeling and receive the appropriate supports. It is argued that burnout can occur in various different areas of life where people are committing themselves and using their energy and resources. Often the signs and symptoms of non-work-related burnout are similar to work-related burnout. However, while there are various different types of burnout one could experience, we'll go over the three of the most common types of non-work-related burnout, which includes parental burnout, caregiver burnout, and marital burnout. Parental burnout, which is greatly increasing in prevalence, especially within the context of COVID-19, has four main symptoms including exhaustion in one's parental role, differences from one's previous parental self, feelings of being fed up with the parental role, and emotional distancing from one's children. This is said to occur especially within the pandemic, as parents often experience chronic stress, which impacts sleep, resulting in decreased mood and irritability. Next is caregiver burnout, which is the condition of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion that derives from voluntarily caring for someone living with illness, disability, or any other circumstance that requires particular attention. In fact, many studies find that being an informal caregiver puts an individual at risk for poor mental and physical health. However, research also shows that it can be beneficial to caregivers to make time to do an enjoyable activity, which reduces stress and in turn symptoms of burnout. And finally, marital burnout. This is burnout that results in exhaustion caused by long-term conflicts between married couples that compromises the relationship. Oftentimes, research shows that it can be beneficial to schedule time together. Marital burnout can in fact increase aggressive behaviors. In this case, however, it is important to remove oneself from the situation and find safety. Types of burnout. Aside from non-work-related burnout, there are also three different classifications or types of burnout which are overload burnout, under-challenge burnout, and neglect burnout. Overload burnout is when individuals work harder to achieve success, which often leads to risking health and personal life to achieve their goals. Under-challenge burnout, on the other hand, is when individuals exhibit signs of not feeling appreciated, boredom, and a lack of growth or learning opportunities. Due to the lack of passion or enjoyment that is being fulfilled in their career, often individuals may distance themselves from their job, resulting in disengagement and avoidance of responsibilities. And finally, neglect burnout can result from feeling helpless at work, potentially from feeling as though they cannot keep up with the demands of their job. This can lead to being passive and unmotivated. Stress versus burnout. While they may appear similar and burnout can be the result of stress, it is important to understand the key differences between stress and burnout. Stress can cause someone to overengage with their environment, which in the case of work-related stress can cause someone to overwork themselves. This is often as they may have feelings of anxiety surrounding what they perceive as low productivity levels, becoming hyperactive, or showing urgent behaviors. However, experiences of burnout will result in disengagement and a lack of productivity, as individuals will feel detached from their roles. As well, with the experience of burnout, the symptoms are primarily psychological rather than physical, as individuals have been living with stress for weeks or even months. Burnout and mental health. Burnout can have lasting impacts on one's mental health. Often, if left untreated or if individuals choose not to cope and manage their stress that results from burnout, it can lead to feelings of depression and anxiety, which can impact other areas of their life, such as their social life. When stress has reached its peak, many individuals struggle to regulate their emotions, such as sadness, anger, and guilt. This can result in panic attacks, anger outbursts, or substance use. Therefore, it is key that individuals work to prevent or cope with burnout and alter their relationship with the source of burnout to prevent negative consequences on their mental health. Especially as when neglected, it can worsen mental health, which can impact work and in turn create a cycle of ongoing stress. Causes of burnout. As well as understanding what burnout is and how it can impact individuals, it is key to understand the root causes of burnout. Burnout is not only caused by working long hours or taking on too many tasks, but can also be the result of not being in control of how a job is done, either at the work location or at home, as well as an individual being required to complete tasks that contrast with their sense of self. Another cause of burnout could be working toward a goal that does not bring a sense of accomplishment to the individual, or if they lack appropriate supports. Oftentimes, individuals may not find a job with responsibilities that match what they may feel is their true calling, or they may also struggle to take breaks. For instance, high-stress jobs such as lawyers or healthcare professionals may be more likely to experience burnout. These causes can also be more broadly applied to other non-work-related types of burnout. High-stress jobs, however, are not always going to result in burnout, especially if someone learns to manage stress and their time well. However, in cases of work-related burnout, there are 5 key risk factors, such as unreasonable time pressure, and this can come about when employees do not have flexibility in their time to complete their work, which can add more stress onto their job, which is commonly seen in paramedics. As well, there is a lack of communication or support from superiors, which can result from managers not explaining expectations properly or withholding support from their employees. Furthermore, there's a lack of role clarity, which can derive from employees not being told exactly what is expected, and this adds stress as employees must figure out what is needed from them and roles may consistently change. Another risk factor is unmanageable workloads, which can lead to burnout as it can cause employees to feel overwhelmed quickly. And finally, unfair treatment. This can make people 2.3 times more likely to experience burnout. Unfair treatment includes favoritism, unfair compensations, and mistreatment from coworkers. Warning signs of burnout. There are various warning signs that can help to identify whether someone is experiencing burnout. However, these symptoms may vary per person, especially as people tend to react to stressors differently. These signs can be placed into 2 categories, psychological and physical. Psychological symptoms may include reduced performance and productivity, anxiety, detachment, low mood, difficulties concentrating, reductions in creativity, fatigue, negative attitudes towards coworkers or other individuals they may interact with in their role, negative attitudes towards their responsibilities, low commitment to the role, a loss of purpose, absenteeism, feelings of anger that can come on quickly, job turnover, cynicism, feelings of being numb, and frustration. Physical symptoms may include exhaustion, general aches and pains, headaches, gastrointestinal disorders, hypertension, difficulty sleeping or a disrupted sleep cycle, decreased immune function, and muscle tension. Now that we have a better understanding of what burnout is and what its root causes are, we can look at a few statistics to demonstrate the rising problem within Canada. Research shows that 35% of Canadians feel burnt out, where 48% of Canadians state that they are more stressed at the beginning of 2022 than when lockdowns began at 2020, demonstrating the large role the pandemic has played on experiences of burnout. Workers in certain industries report burnout levels that are higher than the national average, where percentages of those experiencing burnout in health and patient care is 53%, transportation is 40%, finance, legal, and insurance is 39%, education and child care is 38%, and first responders is at 36%. As well, in the health and patient care industry, 66% of nurses and 61% of mental health professionals say that they are burnt out. Burnout and the pandemic. As mentioned on the statistics slide, the pandemic has been a large source of stress, and individuals have been reporting heightened experiences of burnout. That is because the pandemic itself can be a large source of stress for various reasons, including fears of a loved one becoming ill with COVID-19, changes with roles such as work or parental roles, consistently hearing upsetting news, as well as caring for family members. The pandemic has caused unique experiences as well, with changes to individuals' routines, ongoing stressors regarding masking, infection rates, vaccines, among others, isolation from loved ones, an overload of information, and a lack of job stability. All of these circumstances play a role in pandemic-related burnout and can put individuals at risk for burnout. This can be further complicated for individuals who have to maneuver the pandemic with pre-existing health conditions, chronic illnesses, other disabilities, or other reasons that may put someone at high risk or vulnerable for COVID-19. Therefore, in the age of an ongoing pandemic, it is key to learn methods of prevention and coping, which will be discussed on a later slide. There are various misconceptions about burnout. It is important that we deconstruct them in order to combat misinformation that exists and gives rise to stereotypes and stigma. The first misconception is that burnout is a sign of weakness and that someone cannot handle stress. This is untrue. Burnout is not a sign of weakness or that someone cannot handle stress. While burnout is the result of chronic stress due to a particular role, it has nothing to do with weakness. This constant perception of weakness as it relates to mental health carries much stigma, meaning that less people are likely to discuss their experiences or reach out for support. Next is, burnout requires someone to make large changes in their life. Many people who experience burnout worry that in a work-related situation they may need to leave their job, regardless of whether or not they enjoy it. This misconception spreads misinformation, as individuals do not need to leave their role that is causing burnout, but make some changes to lessen the stress they're experiencing. Burnout must be kept private. Burnout should never be kept private, and it can be beneficial to discuss experiences with others rather than keeping them a secret. This misconception can be harmful, as individuals are less likely to reach out and are left to live with stress alone. Vacations or a day off will cure burnout. Research demonstrates that a vacation cannot cure burnout, as it is different than everyday stress. In fact, while breaks from a role can decrease burnout symptoms during the break, they will rise again after returning to the role. Therefore, it is better to find supports that will be beneficial in the long run. And finally, if someone is burnt out, they must also be depressed. While burnout and depression are related, there are other factors that can influence burnout, and while burnout can result in mental health concerns, it doesn't always. This misconception spreads information that can harm, as it is not always synonymous with all experiences. Preventing and coping with burnout. There are various ways to prevent and cope with burnout while taking on various roles. However, it is important to note that individuals may find certain methods work better for them than others due to the individuality and experiences. With this in mind, we'll go over a few methods that can be beneficial overall, the first being exercise. This can be beneficial as it provides an activity that naturally reduces stress. As well, eating well can be beneficial. With eating and exercise, it is important to note that mental health is not entirely dependent on physical factors. However, looking out for physical health can benefit mental health. Additionally, it's important to practice good sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene is significant as disturbances in sleep routine can be related to burnout, and it can perpetuate burnout symptoms. It can be important to work on sleep routines that benefit you. Practice self-care. Self-care can look different for everyone, but can consist of basic needs such as food, hydration, exercise, and sleep, as well as finding time for yourself to relax and do an enjoyable activity. It's also important to find ways to reduce stressors within the role. This depends exactly on what the role is. However, in the case of work-related burnout, it can be beneficial to establish boundaries and learn to say no to additional work. And finally, reach out. Reaching out to others is important, as it can provide a safe space to discuss feelings and experiences rather than keeping everything to yourself. It can also be beneficial to reach out to a professional. Supporting someone experiencing burnout. There are various ways you can support someone in coping with burnout. However, what is key is listening to what is needed in terms of support. With this in mind, we'll go over a few helpful tips when supporting someone experiencing burnout. The first being listen. This is important as instead of finding solutions, it can be more beneficial to listen to the individual, as discussing experiences and feelings can make a large impact. Next is validation. While phrases such as, "I'm sure things will improve," may be said with good intentions, they can often invalidate someone, especially when they're feeling hopeless. Validating feelings with phrases such as, "I can understand why you would feel so overwhelmed," "It sounds like a lot," or "Would you like to tell me more?" can be more helpful. You can also offer specific ways to help. Often when experiencing burnout, individuals may not know what help is needed, so it can be helpful to reassure them that if they do think of something, to let you know. However, it could be even more beneficial to offer specific things like dropping off a meal, doing the dishes for them, or other similar tasks that may reduce small stressors in their life. Research and learn about resources. Finding other resources that can provide additional supports can be beneficial. It can remind them that they're not alone and that they have options and someone who is willing to help them find these options. Most important, however, is self-care. It can be significant to look after your own mental well-being, establish boundaries, and take time for yourself to relax. Helping clients cope with burnout. As burnout is such a common experience for many and can apply to so many different roles, there are countless ways practitioners can help clients learn to cope and manage burnout symptoms. However, this will be entirely dependent on the individual. There are some key points to remind clients about, which can include focusing on what they can and cannot control, and when they cannot control something, learn how to manage its impact and their reaction. Find some stressors that can be removed from their schedule that won't add stress later on. Remind and teach them how to set boundaries so that they know they do not have to take on more responsibilities. Discuss support groups and other networks that they can create. Remind them to take care of their physical health. As burnout can impact physical health greatly, it can be beneficial to discuss nutrition, any substance use, sleep hygiene, and any other factors. And finally, remind them that they're not alone, as anyone can experience burnout. What is significant is that they do not isolate themselves and they do reach out to others. Now we'll go over resources. The most important thing to take away from this video is that there's supports and help available. For an immediate mental health crisis, reach out to a crisis line for support. For non-immediate mental health support, a useful resource is For a Safer Space. For a Safer Space is a nonprofit that offers accessible and inclusive mental health care. Visit the website for more information if you would like to reach out for support. We will conclude this video with some key takeaways. Burnout is the circumstance of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion that results in excessive and prolonged stress. Burnout can be work-related or non-work-related. Non-work-related burnout can include parental burnout, caregiver burnout, and marital burnout. There are different types of burnout, such as overload burnout, under-challenge burnout, or neglect burnout. Stress and burnout are different and can have different impacts on symptoms and an individual's behavior. Therefore, it is important to distinguish the two. Burnout can lead to mental health concerns such as anxiety or depression. Therefore, it is key that individuals learn to cope with burnout. Burnout can be caused by various factors related to satisfaction, workload, or a lack of support. There are some risk factors that can increase someone's probability of experiencing burnout, including unreasonable time pressures, lack of communication or support, lack of role clarity, unmanageable workload, and unfair treatment. As well, there are warning signs for burnout which can be classified into psychological and physical symptoms. Often when individuals experience stress, they will have more physical symptoms, whereas with burnout, individuals will exhibit more psychological symptoms. Unique to the last couple of years is pandemic-related experiences of burnout, which are the result of the pressures and lack of certainty with COVID-19. There are various misconceptions about burnout which can perpetuate harmful stereotypes and stigma. as they often spread misinformation. Due to the consequences of burnout, it is significant that individuals work to prevent and cope with experiences of burnout, and individual methods will differ. It is also important to help support others experiencing burnout, but individuals must center self-care and their own mental well-being. And finally, practitioners can help clients experience burnout by providing reminders and helping them find methods to cope. That concludes this presentation on burnout. Thank you for watching.